This is Nakatsuka. Let's start studying about roses little by little together from now on. It's very difficult to explain this briefly. And if I were to explain it in detail, it would take hours. First, I would like to give a brief explanation today. Basically, there are actually no places in Japan where roses don't bloom. So, in fact, roses can be cultivated anywhere, in any type of soil. There may be many of you who don't know this, but as for where the small rose seedlings are grown, it actually turns out to be in rice fields. It's a rice field with poor drainage, but surprisingly, good quality rose seedlings are being produced there. When it comes to the topic of how and where to grow good roses, the first step is to create strong rose seedlings that can retain water well, but it should retain water while also allowing for good drainage. It is often said that soil containing organic matter like compost is good. However, the environment can vary greatly depending on who is creating it. I don't think that the soil preparation or location I mention is the most important. Rather, I believe that creating soil tailored to your own environment is very important. The roses produced by the growers all use good soil. But whether that soil is actually the best is a different story. The way producers grow their flowers varies depending on the location, quantity, and variety. For example, we also need to consider things like this. It's called a distributor. We deliver the roses we made to everyone. Then the distributors say that the pots of roses are too heavy. Carrying thousands of pots can lead to back pain and can be quite challenging, which sometimes makes people reluctant to do it. Considering such distributors, I thought it might be better to create roses with lighter soil, even just a little. On the other hand, when it comes to large farms, there are farmers who produce hundreds of thousands of pots, like 10,000 or 20,000 pots for Mother's Day. I haven't made that many, so I water them by hand with a hose every day. Even so, I start watering at 5 a.m. and it ends up being around 9 or 10 a.m. So for breakfast, I make rice balls and such. If you don't water while eating rice balls, it won't end well, will it? However, farmers who produce a lot more can't do that kind of work. It's called bottom irrigation, where water is poured from the bottom to collect water and allow the pot to absorb it. That's the kind of management we are doing. First of all, I hope you don't think that the soil made by the producers is the best, even if you make a mistake. And I think it would be great if you could study roses with me now and create soil that suits you. This is Nakatsuka. Thank you in advance. This is quite difficult to narrow down to 3, as there are hundreds of thousands of rose varieties, as I mentioned earlier. So it might be a bit challenging to limit it to just 3 varieties. I would like to introduce some varieties that are suitable for specific locations, and also discuss a selection of roses that are good for beginners. Thank you. For example, I want to plant a lot of roses in a large space, first of all. But for those who are a bit of a beginner and have some worries, the most reliable one is the makobana. This makobana is a once blooming rose, while there are also roses that bloom continuously from spring to autumn. as long as the temperature allows. In
But
spring,
this one only
it grows
blooms
well
once
and
a
is
year.
thriving without any maintenance. It's almost unheard of to get sick, or anything like that. I think this Macobara is suitable for a large garden. Another one is Pierre de Ronsard. This is a rose that even those who have never made one might have heard of somewhere, representing roses from around the world. And what everyone calls it is my Pierre. Everyone raises this Pierre de Ronsard as if it were their own child. This is also a truly wonderful rose that is said to have all three qualities. This is also suitable for a large garden. Another one is a rose called Nehema, announced by the Delbard Company. I think this rose is my favorite among all the roses available now. First, it grows well and is resistant to pests and diseases. And it already has a floral quality. The fragrance is also wonderful. I think it's quite rare to find a rose that has all three qualities like this. However, there may be people who think, for example, that they can't grow roses because they don't have a large space, or that their environment tends to be a bit shady. A white rose like Iceberg or another cocktail variety might be suitable. Well, roses like Graham Thomas are easy to grow, even in slightly unfavorable environments. So I think this is also a good recommendation. No, for people who say they really have limited space, because they grow them on their balcony. There are many roses. This is also one type of mini rose. Green ice that blooms beautifully even in summer. This is a rose that gradually changes from white to green. There is also a small rose called Masaki, which is said to be the smallest in the world, with a diameter of only about 5 millimeters. Even so, the petals are heart-shaped. Speaking of Yamaguchi Prefecture, Ube City is a place where roses are very popular. And the rose that originated from Ube is called Ube. This rose was born during the 100th anniversary of Ube City. It's still hardly available in the market. This rose is currently being bred by our company. Believe it or not, there's already a one-year wait for this. Seedlings are already coming in now. It's a quality that is so popular that there are even a few fakes circulating online. This is also a variety that I am currently very much looking forward to. This is Nakatsuka. Nice to meet you. I look forward to working with you today as well. Last time, I talked about rose varieties that I highly recommend for beginners. Especially in early spring, many varieties of roses will appear in various home centers and flower shops. Among them, there are new varieties that we are also unsure about. The truth is that with new varieties, we really don't know their characteristics yet. There might be varieties that are susceptible to diseases or prone to pests. There are so many roses in the world. The fact that a variety that has existed for 10 or 20 years really is still around. So I definitely recommend this for beginners. If you're looking for your first rose, this is one that has been around for a long time. There is no doubt about this. Well, for those who don't know what kind of roses have existed since long ago, there is something called the World Rose Conference. There are roses that have been inducted into the Rose Hall of Fame there. Induction into the Hall of Fame means that roses that are truly outstanding in every aspect are inducted. It doesn't happen right away, after all. It's about cultivating roses for many years. Among them, this rose is definitely a good rose. I think it's important to first choose a variety like this rose. Then there's the way to plant it and how to water it. I will explain how to water the plants in detail later. And I hope you will pay attention to that as well. In short, it's very similar to raising children. When humans feel hot, roses also feel hot. When humans are suffering from the heat, and experiencing summer fatigue. Roses are also
How should
feeling
we
the
deal
effects
with
of
summer
summer fatigue, just like humans. Or what should we do during
Should
hot
we look
weather?
for
Some shade and take a break there? The difference with such a person is that roses cannot speak. In that regard, let's change it to a rose. Just by thinking about what state the rose is in while creating it, it keeps changing more and more. I think it would be good to cultivate while being careful about those things. At this time of year, especially, diseases can occur no matter what medication you use. That's why more than half of the people end up failing. I can create because I have a good environment, but if I create in the same environment as everyone else, I would fail more than half the time. But that, in turn, is the charm of roses. And everyone is like that with hydrangeas. I wonder if it would be fine if everyone planted and everyone enjoyed the hydrangeas. The charm of roses lies in the repetition of both failures and successes. This is Nakatsuka. Thank you for your continued support today as well. Last time, I talked a bit about rose soil, but I don't want you to think that the roses produced by the growers are the best. Anyway, growers are doing it in a way that suits each specific location. First, try holding the flower. I wonder if this is light soil or heavy soil. It's about creating soil that suits me while feeling whether it's light or heavy. Another important aspect for producers is how many flowers they can plant in a large greenhouse. So they try to cultivate them in as small pots as possible. If you try to manage those small pots, even a slight mistake in watering can lead to the flowers wilting. Such things happen quite often. First, what I would like to ask everyone is to buy a pot for the rose. Then, will you repot it into a slightly larger pot? Ideally, I would like it to be repotted into a pot that is about twice as large. This time of year for replanting is very important. When is the best time to buy roses? Well, it's the cold period from December to February. But buying during this cold season makes it easier to replant, which is nice. Everyone tends to want to buy when they see the flowers, after all. In that case, I think people will inevitably want to buy this rose when it blooms beautifully in April and May. If you plant roses in a way that puts a burden on them during such times, it can actually shock them. However, if you absolutely want to buy flowers after seeing them, then this time, if the flowers are in a small pot, you should repot them into a larger pot. Transplant them into a larger pot. At that time, it's the season when roses are growing and blooming like this. So the roots are also moving a lot. During such times, if the roots are damaged while trying to absorb water and nutrients, flowers like these may fall off. In some cases, this can also cause the leaves to drop. When repotting during such a warm season, try to avoid damaging the soil and roots as much as possible. I think it would be good to gently repot it into a pot that is 1 to 2 sizes larger. And then there's the watering. I think that if you water it thoroughly when the soil is dry, it will reduce the chances of failure. This is Nakatsuka. Thank you for your cooperation today. So first, let's talk about the basics of watering and how to establish roots. By the way, this happened recently. We have a store called Azahana, and an elderly lady hurried in. I wondered what was wrong, and it turned out she received a pot of roses from her grandchild for respect. But in this state, it's going to wither away, isn't it? You hurried over because you were worried about what to do. Comes, right? So, from the results of my initial diagnosis, I can say that it's okay. And there's no problem, and I talked about recovery methods. But actually, roses can be cared for all year round. When I think about making beautiful flowers bloom, it becomes a very difficult flower to achieve. For example, flowers bloom in spring, flowers bloom in autumn. Even so, I can be quite satisfied. And I think that managing it that way might be easier. The basic principle of watering now is to give water when the soil is dry. It's often said to water as if you were turning over a bucket. If the soil dries out too much, a phenomenon called water channeling can occur, where it seems like the water only drains from the drier areas. So this is what I think. The best way to give is to first sprinkle some water. After the soil is damp, sprinkle water again. I think doing it twice is good. The fact that enough water comes out from the bottom of the pot means this time, new air and oxygen will enter the pot, right? By doing so, the roots will grow healthily again, leading to something interesting. The balance between the flowers, leaves, and roots above is very well maintained. So if the roots get damaged, the leaves will turn yellow or fall off. When the roots become healthy, the leaves will start to increase rapidly. Once the leaves start to grow, won't be just enough water alone. So please provide liquid fertilizer or nutrients. First of all, many people say things like, roses are difficult, so I'm going to stop trying to make them. There are also many people who talk about whether they can grow roses or not. The most important thing is not to be afraid of failure. I want you to think of it as a strong flower that will definitely recover even after failing. Especially in Japan, we have the 4 seasons of spring, summer, autumn, and winter. During the winter, when the cold period continues, all the nutrients and nourishment return to the roots. And when spring comes, the nutrients beautifully rise again. So it gets reset. By being reset, new and good buds keep sprouting and flowers bloom. I hope you will challenge yourself to rose cultivation without worrying about those aspects. You don't have to worry that much. Even if you fail, you will definitely recover. So, throughout the year, it's about being satisfied with the successes of spring and autumn. I think that's fine for the average person. Producers have to make flowers bloom even on scorching summer days. There are also cases where they have to make flowers bloom in the middle of winter. It's not just that in reality, beautiful flowers bloom in spring. And even if only 10 bloom, you have to think that the producer has to ensure that this plant produces 20 flowers even if only to make 10 bloom instead of 20. They are satisfied and happy. The charm of roses is that even just 1 or 2 blooms can bring joy in return. I think it's better not to overthink that part and just take on the challenge. Also, during summer or the rainy season, you have to be prepared for some failures when you create. Then, even if the leaves fall, new leaves will come out again. Is it like blooming flowers again in the autumn? That's why many of the roses that are considered Hall of Fame roses are from decades ago. But for example, it's amazing that roses from 20 years ago are still blooming now. Conversely, after being announced many roses new varieties have almost cultivating them just 5 years later. So, the fact that roses from 20 or 30 years ago are still blooming now means they are truly great roses. So when I encounter such roses, I think it makes it easier to create them and is good in many ways. Whether you can create good roses depends on whether you have love for the flowers, so I hope you can create them in that way.